You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. I'm your host, Leah.
And I'm Sophia.
And thanks for listening today.
Check in.
It's been a week.
It's actually been like a few months.
It's been a few months. Okay.
Since we've checked in.
I was busy. Being pregnant and having a baby and births.
Yeah.
What's
Which I don't even think we fully checked in
we'll
about
have
that.
We'll do a podcast episode
Oh my
about
goodness.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
The birth story of
Yeah.
Leah and Sophia.
Yeah. My last month or so and a half has looked like my son flying on a helicopter to the hospital, children's hospital. And then my car broke down. That was $4,000. And then I borrowed my mom's car to go to a birth, and they smashed her windows and took all of my supplies. That was like $3,000 of supplies.
It's a little rough.
And then we moved our home into a new home, and I got an office. And the day we moved in, he asked us to leave because we used the bathroom too much. I was like, okay, this is not really happening. So a few days later, found another office, which we love, and we're here now, and it's so much better than the other one. And the landlord's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then my nanny gave 2 weeks notice, all in the 2 months where I've been the busiest I've ever been in my whole career. But it's just
hearing it all lined up like that.
Oh, and my period was 9 days late, and my husband and I were like, what does this mean? And obviously now we know why it was 9 days late.
When you say it like that,
kind of stressful. But it's all been reaffirming that yes, the plan Leah and I have in place for next year is exactly what I want to be doing and what I need to be doing, which we will disclose that at some point.
To it. Awesome.
What about you?
Dang, I had a good month. No, my month was really pretty good. I went to Hawaii with my 14-year-old for a week. It was the first time I've left like the immediate vicinity I think it was the first vacation I had in 8 years.
Wow.
9 years. So that was a lot. It was amazing. And then I had a couple of births, beautiful stuff. I was so glad to have you, Sophia. Mm-hmm. Right before I left for Hawaii, I had a mama due, and it was up in the air whether it'd be me or you. Mm-hmm. And then one of my kids got COVID, and I was caretaking her. She was fine. I was fine, but the family didn't want me to come, which made total sense. So Sophia took over, mm-hmm. and they had an incredible birth. And it felt just like the gratitude that I felt to be able to send Sophia and know like she would care for them the same way that I would.
And the jealousy. We half expected to see you like peeking in through the windows because they literally lived around the corner from Leah too. She was so heartbroken.
And we weren't sure if she would birth before I left for Hawaii, and she did like 2 days before. And so it was like I was supposed to be there, but it always
ruin
goes
everything
the way it's supposed to. Yeah. And she had like an incredible birth, and I was so grateful. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know, trucking along. We got the office in San Rafael as well, and I love it. It's beautiful. It's big. It's right downtown, right off Highway 101. Freeway. I don't know what 101 is.
Yeah, it's a highway.
It's the thing that connects everything. So that feels really good, and yeah, really exciting. And then I guess I'll wrap it up with this weekend. My good friend and neighbor had a talent show for her birthday, and it was like top 5 nights of my life.
Oh.
Like just so great. And so many of her friends are these like really good musicians, like touring, really incredible, talented people. And it was this, but they all just like goofed out. They just like
What was
some.
your talent?
So I read a chocolate chip cookie recipe like it was a poem, like really serious and like a little bit sultry. It was amazing. But there was like people singing, somebody did the limbo, there was like spoken
Oh.
word about like
If I can convince Leah, we'll have her read it for the
oh
end of the the podcast.
it yeah. It was just like even people that like clearly could have sang amazing things just
Mhm.
like got up and did goofy,
Goofy,
goofy
yeah,
shit,
yeah.
excuse my language.
That's
Like,
so funny.
so it was, yeah, it was like laughter and so much fun.
That's
So
so fun.
anyway, that
Nice.
was a long check-in.
Yeah.
I'll let you introduce our fabulous guest.
Well, this is a third time's a charm. I can't even remember. We just had so many internet mishaps go on. Maybe there was a birth one time. I can't remember. But we're finally so excited to talk to Suzzie today. And I'll just throw it right over to you, and you can introduce yourself to the listeners and give a little background, and then we'll dive right in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I have been listening to your podcast for a while, and I am just blown away by the partnership and the support that you guys have for each other and your community. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So, thank you for having me. My name is Suzzie. I am a doula and a childbirth educator. And I um, I'm very excited to be here because I think to me, pregnancy and giving birth is such a time of exploration and growth and evolution as people. I know for me on my path that when I first became pregnant the first time, I had no trust in myself or the process of birth. I didn't know how incredible any of it could be. And as I've kind of moved through bringing my own children into the world and then supporting mothers into bringing their children to the world, it just amazes me how powerful and strong and how birth is often the awakening moment to our own power and how incredible that we are as human beings and mothers.
Yes, definitely. That was really beautifully said.
How many kids do you have? What are their ages?
I have two girls. They are 8 and 4. And then I have one rainbow child that I miscarried at 14 weeks. So,
Mm, mhm. Do you, I'd love to have you touch a little bit on your births if you want to. I'd love for you to touch on like at what point in your life you became a doula, and then also how the childbirth ed piece came in.
yeah, absolutely. So it's all, I mean, it's a long story and it's beautiful. And it's, as I said, an evolution. When I first was pregnant with my for the first time, my ex-husband, the father of my children, he comes from a very natural family that his mom did natural births and they believe very much in all things natural and good. And my family was totally the opposite. So for me, I was like, can I schedule this? Can I just like, what's the like quickest, most medical way to get through this? And I remember when Zach looked at me and he said, "That's not how we're doing this." And I just thought, what do you mean? And it was really eye-opening to me. Unfortunately, I started care based on his recommendation and I had a few really good friends that had done home births and that had kind of given me an idea that maybe this other way of doing things was possible, even though it was new and something different to me. I started care with an incredible midwife, and then I had a rare complication, a molar pregnancy, which is incredibly rare. So I finished my care with, I had a great OB that helped me with the end of pregnancy care through that. And then, as you might know, a lot of people don't know what a molar pregnancy is, but basically the fetus is not developing properly and it's not a sustainable pregnancy, and it has some long-term possible risks if they're not cared for. So for the next year, I had to go in and had, blood tests and just watching very closely to make sure that everything returned to a state of normal. And through that time, my OB was so incredible. Calling to check in on me and so thoughtful. So when I was pregnant again with my rainbow baby, Zoe, she's 8 now. Of course, we went back to him because he was so great. And it was such an eye-opening experience because when things had gone wrong, they were so over the top caring. And then when I'm going through this pregnancy again, where everything's right, it was like all of a sudden I was in the system with people that I had relationships with that didn't even have time for me. It was such a strange dichotomy between, okay, here we are as experts when something goes wrong and we're really showing up for you. And now you're on your own when things are going well. And when I went into, we had the idea and desire to do a natural birth, but we unfortunately didn't take any birth courses. I still had, just my levels of anxiety were, I think I was probably a little bit more immature than most as far as not recognizing the power of pregnancy or birth or appreciating all that happens in that, coupled with my extra fear from things that didn't work out the time before. And when I started labor, things quickly stalled as soon as we got into the hospital. And once we tried augmenting, and about 24 hours later, we ended up having a C-section, which to this day, I do not know if it was one of these C-sections that was truly needed to happen that way, or as many researchers suggest that over 50% of C-sections could be prevented. And my guess is that mine could have been if my anxiety or care had been different, my preparation had been different. Things likely would have gone differently. And then after she was born, I moved. I met this incredible friend who was doing her midwifery training. We would go hiking every week. And then as I heard her stories every single week, I started thinking like, okay, so before I had kind of had like dipped my toe into natural birth might be possible. But as I heard her stories, I started going from, is it possible to, wow, that sounds incredible. Just a mind change of birth isn't something you suffer through, but something that you actively participate in and do. And so when I became pregnant again with my second child, Hazel, I planned a home birth. I found an incredible midwife who did a VBAC with me. And I just remember the moment she was born thinking, it was just so cool because when she was born, when I delivered her, my midwife scooped her up, placed her directly in my arms. And I just remember looking at her as she took her first breath and just having this feeling of like, time stood still. It was just such an incredibly powerful experience. And so after she was born, about 6 months later, I started my doula training. And I've been a doula for about 3.5 years. And I just recently also started teaching childbirth education classes as well.
It's like for women who realize that it's not realistic to just be pregnant forever and have these amazing births. They're like, what else can I do?
How can I stay in this world? Something you said really stood out to me. And it's like a feedback that I've gotten a lot from like families I start working with around their previous experiences, like not trusting their body or feeling like, oh, they wish they had known, or even like a little bit of a judgment of themselves. Like when because I had my first daughter at the hospital, and there's a variety of reasons, but I just think it's important to acknowledge as women in these bodies, like we are taught not to trust our bodies our whole lives, and not to acknowledge our power and all of that. So it's just such a common thread that I hear. And that's part of why I love home birth so much, is just shifting that.
Yeah.
So
that we're not actually powerful, we're considered the weaker sex.
Right. Well, and just that we're taught that we need outside help to protect our babies from our own bodies.
Something
exactly. Yeah, and it's a crazy disassociation of like, this is what I'm capable of doing. And it's actually, is it Rebecca Decker that wrote the book Babies Are Born, Not Delivered? They're not, they're not delivered like a pizza. They're not brought to you by somebody else. You actually birth your baby, and that's something that you do. And it's a remarkable process, and it's an incredible power. It's not just something you stumble into, or it's not. I mean, I remember when I was 22 and pregnant for the first time, just feeling this incredible feeling of I want somebody else to do this for me.
Mm.
And then by the time that I was pregnant with Hazel, there was this acknowledgement of nobody else needs to do this because I can do it. Even, it's probably, I've never worked for anything so hard in my entire life as my children, but it was such a rewarding process, not a process of suffering at all.
Yeah. And then you have that on your side to raise them.
You do.
That's when it gets really hard too, but you can pull from your experience of if I did that, I can do this,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you really develop like a trust in your child as well, because there is an element of we're doing this together, and the intention of discovering my own power and my own self gave me an ability, I think, for both my children to recognize their own spirit and their own, even as children, like it's incredible that we can trust our children to breathe when they're born,
Mhm.
right? Like they come out into this world and they know how to cry and how to clear their lungs, and they know how to latch, and they know, of course, sometimes there's like a little bit of help or a little bit of, especially with breastfeeding, trying to figure it out because it's always a learning process, but we can trust them just like we can trust ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah. So obviously you became a doula because you just fell in love with the process. What has
Mhm.
that journey been like for you? And then at what point in being a doula did you recognize the need for this childbirth education that you created?
Yeah, I think my birth story fits so easily into, or my journey personally fits so easily into this. Tried the medical system way, it didn't really work, and then the natural way really did, when I was committed and open and took the classes and did the preparation. But then as I became a doula and I was working with women kind of all over that spectrum of, I remember, like, when I started, I had that immense distrust of myself and need for outside reliance, to women who were all the way on the, what, I really just want you there as a backup. And I feel very confident and capable of this. And I had a few experiences where people who had these birth plans ended up having birth stories that took them, just like mine, to opposite extremes. One of the first moms I worked with, she was planning a home birth, and she was really, really excited and very prepared. And then a couple weeks before her birth, she started developing like really severe preeclampsia with a very high blood pressure, and was transferred into the medical system. And unfortunately, had an induction that didn't go well, followed by a C-section that also, she had some reactions to the medicine that they used to numb her during that. And it was a very, very difficult experience, so much so that I was like, wow, anything that I've complained about in my births is like so pale in comparison to this very prepared mom. And at that point in time, I didn't know much about preeclampsia, but as I started to go back and to research and to look into it more, because I wanted to better, when I was with her, I realized, wow, I'm really unprepared to support someone in this situation. Like I just hadn't learned much about that. I started to learn about how much of everything, all the complications that can happen, are often, not always, but often tied to how we care for ourselves, the nutrition we have, the amount of rest we have, especially preeclampsia, preterm birth. All of those things can significantly come down with proper nutrition. And I started thinking, well, where do people learn about nutrition? And, as I took like spinning babies classes and optimal, the OMP classes, just to really kind of gather more information as, every time one of my moms would kind of reach a problem that I couldn't solve, it was like, okay, where do I go to learn more about this? And I started to think like, okay, so how do we go from people that have anxiety, that don't know proper care about the unique needs we have during pregnancy, and also need to learn about the birthing process, like how can we do this all in one place? Because one thing I learned about care when I was with OB care is that they were amazing in emergencies, but it wasn't really their job or their place to care. If everything was going well, it wasn't their job to teach me nutrition. It wasn't their job to teach me any of that stuff. And they certainly didn't have space for it in their like overpacked, crazy schedules. And so that aspect of self care and education and evolution needs to come through a childbirth class. And there are some really amazing childbirth classes that touch on some areas. I think Bradley classes are amazing to get a basic of nutrition and some, really practical pain coping skills. And Lamaze is so good at teaching, just their basics of this is what you need to do for a natural birth, and this is about trusting your body. And hypnobirthing is so good about the mental training and helping you prepare to work with the process of birth instead of having that tight, tense reaction. But but how could a person take all three? Because they're like 10 hours each, right? So I just tried to take all the elements from what I found in my own research and what I was seeing work and help with the moms that I was working with and put it into one place so that you can have the preventative aspect of taking care of yourself along with the education and the recognition of like, okay, we're humans coming into this process and we all have an ideal birth plan. And for some of us, that is a natural birth. And for some of us, some people that I work with do feel safer in the hospital, and that wherever we are, it's okay that you can have a judgment place for you to come to learn and to grow and to take those steps into diving into the anxiety and the fear and growing past it.
Mhm. Mhm. Beautiful. What does it look like? Is it an online course? What's it called?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So I call it Birth Undone because the point is to undo the anxiety around birth, undo the fear, and with the preventative, undo some of the risk, right? Like with the acknowledging that there are always things in our control and out of our control, helping us develop the skills that help us nourish and take care of ourselves that are within our control. Because ultimately, when we take care of those things, our body takes care of so much for us, right? Like if we give ourselves the right food, our body knows what to do with it.
Mhm.
So it's called Birth Undone. It's 100% online. So there's 8 different weeks, and each week goes into a different aspect of birth. Or we talk about fear and pain management. We talk about nutrition. We talk about some exercises to really bring some more balance to the pelvic area.
Is
And
it
so
live or recorded?
they're all recorded sessions.
Okay. Mhm.
And then we do have a Facebook element as well that's more of like a live aspect where you can ask questions from other people in the class. I'm in there a few times a week as well, responding to people's questions, clarifying anything, helping if you have any specific questions. Then the best part of the group is that I think one of the hardest things about online education is it's really hard to stay motivated and it can feel a little isolating. So to kind of encourage people to be a part of the community and to finish the modules and to make time to do the things that you learn in the class, we have giveaways where every week we give away baby carriers, cute outfits for babies, and you get entered into the giveaway just by finishing modules, by making changes to your diet, by practicing the hypnosis and listening to the hypnosis tracks, just so that there's that element of like, hey, we're in this together and you're not doing it alone and you won't I mean, I know so many times I've bought something online and started it, and then a week into it, I'm like, oh, wait, I remember my life is really busy and already overpacked. I don't know what I was doing
I have
starting
at least 3 online courses I've paid for, and I will never touch it.
I know.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
hit it on the head. You're like, "Ooh, free
Yeah.
moms want free baby carriers," and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard
Yeah.
of that.
It's a
Really
good
smart.
incentive.
So
Well, I know I need incentives to,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to have discipline. And when you're pregnant and you have so much on your plate
Mhm.
and so many, I mean, for me, I know with a person that has had anxiety in life, I know that starting things is really hard for me. So sometimes if I'm like, okay, well, I can focus on maybe I'll win that cute baby carrier, then I don't have to focus on like, what if I don't finish it, or what if I'm not good enough, or what if this doesn't work out the way I plan, or what, like I am definitely a person where the what ifs can overtake progress. So,
Yeah. So I think you were in the middle when I had asked about if it was live or recorded. You were in the middle of saying what the 8 weeks covered.
oh, yeah, we pretty much went through all of it. And then we just go
Okay.
through labor start to finish, like what to expect in early labor, what to expect in active labor, different breathing patterns for early labor, active labor, transition, the golden hour, and then breastfeeding as well.
Mhm.
So eventually we'll add other feeding options because I think all feeding options are valid and needed,
Mhm.
but work in progress there.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's great. It sounds like it's I love how you loop in the nutrition part and like hypnosis as well. You had mentioned spinning babies. Does it touch on like that aspect at all?
I took a spinning babies course early on in my career and it helped me a lot. So it doesn't so much say like, oh, this is spinning babies, but there are definitely when we're talking about pain coping techniques or ways that partners can be involved and some of the exercises that I teach to kind of restore balance. I do pull from both the spinning babies course and the it's called optimal maternal positioning, which was a doula out in Australia that teaches that course. And that was the one where, for me, it made everything click as to like, oh, this is what the baby's doing during labor, and this is what mom's doing, and this is how they all work together. And it helped me see like how I could support that better from the outside or interpret what's happening from the outside without having to get to how do you intervene naturally with movement and exercise movement and positioning versus needing maybe to be at the hospital for more higher levels of intervention, right?
Right.
um, and so I love that course. If for other doulas or people in the birth world, if you need a class that kind of ties everything together, the optimal maternal positioning is fabulous.
Good to know. Yeah, I love how you can speak to the coming from the fear and like rightfully so with your first experience, but like how to get over that hump, you know, to not let it affect your future pregnancies.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that I've really learned is, especially because I work with a lot of moms that are where I started. I
Mhm.
always thought, like, when I became a doula, I always thought I was going to be on the end of, I'm going to work, probably specialize with moms that are like, yeah, home birth, I'm ready, let's do it. And I tend to work with more people who are like how I was in the beginning, like very apprehensive and unsure of themselves and not needing to go through that evolution to be ready. And I've learned that it's okay. Pregnancy is 9 months and your baby has to grow and develop. And as mothers, we're allowed to grow and develop in that 9 months and to change our expectations about ourselves, to work through our fears. And that at the end of the day, um, we're not defined by a season that we're in, right? Like being afraid at the beginning doesn't mean we have to be afraid by the time we give birth.
Mhm.
And being set on one path doesn't mean that that's the only path that's open to us And we might find something that's more aligned with us as we grow in our knowledge and explore our options and really discover our own power and capability and magnitude of being a person and a mother in this process.
Mhm. For women who use this course on the online group, do women share their story, like how their birth stories went? And are there ever stories where they started here at the beginning of the course and then things have drastically changed and they shifted and maybe were planning a hospital birth and then decided on a home birth? Do those stories ever pop up?
Yeah, so the Facebook element of it, the group is very new. So there's only maybe a dozen moms in there now. But I have been working with moms through this course, developing it for about a year. And I have seen a lot of moms. I mean, one mom specifically, you can read her story on my blog. Olivia, she just went from she was very similar to me, where one of her best friends had had a late term loss, and so she came into birth just. I remember the first time we met, just I'm scared. I don't want to do this. I want everything to work out. Like, my only hope is that everyone's okay at the end, which I've heard people say a lot of times in my interviews. And um, it's something that we need to learn to trust the process of birth, because even though there are things, for me, like, I've had to balance the whole, you know what, I did have something happen that is like one in a thousand, a very rare, incredibly rare thing. But that doesn't mean that things can't and won't work out for me this time. And to see moms like Olivia kind of go through that same thing. I remember after she gave birth, when we were talking, she said, I can't believe how far I've come in the 9 months from the first time we talked to, like, I gave birth. And that felt really positive. It was hard, but she did it, right? And
Yeah.
I think, to me, that's what makes it all worth it, is like when you see, like, yes, you can do this and you are the one that did it, not everybody else, but you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that everyone else was there because maybe it helped you feel safer and for reassurance and
Mhm.
support, but nobody did it for you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm. What a beautiful journey. What a rocky kind of start to your journey.
Yeah, it's definitely been it's been a rocky road, but a beautiful one, and so much growth through it all, and a lot of beauty.
And I think too, as somebody who works in childbirth, you can like pull from those rocky experiences to be able to look at someone and say, like, I can understand what you're going through and how you're feeling, and like the weight that that holds versus someone who just had these beautiful home births every time, and someone's like, oh, like you can't relate to what I'm experiencing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember one mom I was with who was she had a lot of prodromal labor. So her labor was like 3 days long. And I remember, like, halfway through it, she looked at me and she said, I'm sorry, this isn't what you signed up for. And I remember looking back at her and saying, this is exactly what I signed up for. I would give the world for you to have the easiest, simplest birth that, 5-hour labor if I could. But we aren't necessarily given that option, right? Like, there's that beautiful balance of what the path that we navigate our own births and our own stories. And this was her story, and there's nothing better than being with somebody in their most difficult moments and seeing them come up out of it.
Mhm. Yeah. I talk about birth in the sense of like it's like a roll of the dice, how it unfolds.
Yeah.
There's a lot we can't control, the dice fall where they fall, but that you get to decide what you're going to do with that and like the mindset you're going to have about it and the choices you're going to make, and then you just roll the dice again, and it's going to
Hmm.
unfold how it's going to unfold, and you keep pivoting and staying in the positive mindset that you can, and waiting for the dice to roll on your baby's born.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and that the power of your choice and like what you decide to do with what's happening is where I think the empowerment piece comes from. Not that you got this like straightforward, smooth birth, because empowerment can almost be more powerful with like when you face obstacles, and hardships and overcome them, or not even like overcome them, but like do the thing, like do the
But
brave
get
thing.
through it sometimes.
Yeah, like, I was just with a mom with the, very long labor and the transport, and, I remember saying to her, "My son always tells me that, when you're scared, but you do it anyways, that's what brave is." And yeah, I know, because he's had to do a lot of brave things in his life, and so it's like you could be scared about something and still, like, embrace it and be brave, and yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember I read a story about a couple that was climbing Mount Everest not that long ago. I don't know when the story happened, but I read the story recently. And as they were climbing up, one of the things that they do is when they're crossing these crevices, is they put a ladder across this ice crevice. So it's like ice that you're hiking over, a ladder, and then you get to the other side. And as
Absolutely.
a couple, I know, right? Crazy. I'm never going to do a hike like
Even,
that.
like, cold water.
They're crazy. But as the couple was crossing, the wife went first and she got over fine. And then as the husband was crossing, it shifted. And so he fell down into the crevice. And so there's this moment of this was not going according to plan. And they all expertly worked together. They had a rope, they got him out, they all summited the hike. They both summited the hike. It was all worked out fine. But when we look at a situation like that, when he fell, no one would say he didn't do enough, he didn't prepare. There's no one would look at that with judgment or shame or self despairing, But in
Even if
birth,
he was a
sometimes when
failure,
we
you know?
get pushed off our plan or that path that we expected would work or be our path, we can be really hard on ourselves. And I really, really, really wish that if for anyone who's experienced trauma or who has taken the path that winds or has been a little bit rocky or up and down, that you look at the growth and the preparation that you had to meet that moment, the choices you made in that moment, because that's truly, I mean, sometimes when you feel the worst, you're really being your strongest and your most powerful.
Mhm. Yeah, and hopefully watching your community show up for you and Allie, I've
Absolutely.
said it before, but, like, the hardships with my children have been the periods of time where I've also felt the most loved ever, so that you can, hopefully have a community that rallies around you when you're having hardships, and
Yeah.
and your birth team, ideally, when you're in the moment, that you
Mhm.
just also never felt more loved.
Yeah.
Like you experienced with your first birth, and then unfortunately experienced where you're like, do they still love me now that things are going
That
through?
was such a strange difference from like we had this great relationship to like, do you remember who I am now?
They're like, you're not exciting anymore.
I know. They're like, we only like you when you have lots of problems for us to solve. Come,
Yeah.
go get some problems and come back.
Yeah. Oh, well, what an amazing journey you've been on. And thank you so much for sharing
Yeah,
with us.
thank you.
And for people listening, how can they find you and find your programs? And we'll include it all in the show notes.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my company is called She Births Bravely. So Facebook, Instagram, website, shebirthsbravely.com, at shebirthsbravely. And then the course is just at learn.shebirthsbravely.com.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Well,
Well, thank
thank you
you.
so much for having me.
Yeah, it was great. And enjoy your off call right now, I think you said.
I am, yeah,
So nice.
Enjoy.
nice little break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
All
take
right.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA.
Sophia at sophiabirth.com.
And me, Leah, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always,
Stay wild.